Okay, call the meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. GL Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's July 16, 2022 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Selectboard and Finance Committee will be conducted both in person and via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public or parties with a right or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend the meeting in person, and for those who wish to do so remotely. For those who are not in person, every effort will be made to ensure that public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to MGL 7C 38, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of a public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body, who may transmit the meeting through any medium. The beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. So this meeting is being recorded by the Berkshire Edge, the Berkshire Eagle, the County of Barrington, CTSB, and others. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. So I'm going to start with one of those items that's not on the agenda. I think, and after talking to a few of you, seem to have agreement that we need to set a date for another meeting. We meet tomorrow night, and I don't think we can get it all done tomorrow night, and I'm not big on 4 or 5 hour meetings, so next Tuesday or next Wednesday, so the 20th or 21st. I'll start with Tuesday. Can everyone make Tuesday?
No, I have a housing subcommittee meeting on Tuesday night.
Right, this is more important.
Yes, but I can. Sorry. I'd be happy. I'm just.
Does anybody have anything that's less important?
I can make Tuesday.
We're here on Valentine's Day anyway.
I didn't really.
so-
Right, we are here. Anyways, that's true.
That's true. I'd be happy to.
I knew you would
Postpone
be.
that.
So everyone can make Tuesday?
Yeah, I prefer Tuesday would be a preference for me.
Yeah, that's
Tuesday the 20th.
Tuesday the 20th. So we will have staff. Okay, so we will meet 6 o'clock next Tuesday. I will say if needed. I'm 99% sure we're going to need it, so. Is there room available?
Push that.
I'll tell you the same thing I told we're more. Get them out of here. And then while they're looking to make sure this room's available, at the end of our discussion tonight, we'll take a couple minutes to decide what course we're gonna take starting tomorrow night. We have operations and we have capital, and if we want staff to come back with anything, it would not gonna happen tomorrow. I'm not gonna have staff to stay up all night and come back with things, so that's why tomorrow we'll start to ask for things and come back next Tuesday.
Okay.
So it'll give them more time. Not a lot of time, because Monday's a holiday, but it will give them some time.
The only thing on the town calendar for the 20th is a finance committee meeting at 6 o'clock right now, so I think.
Well, that's why everything's
Yes.
all available.
Someone should have canceled that.
Someone, anyone you know? Okay, so we're here. Okay, let's start with the budget. Continuation, we are on section 6, and we are now on page 14, and that is the police department. And I see Chief Story queued up.
Yeah.
Yeah, good evening, everybody.
Okay.
Steve, I did raise my hand slightly because I am not here next week. I'm on vacation out of town. So next Tuesday, I am not available, just to let you
Okay,
know.
it is school vacation, and I knew that would gonna be a problem anyways for some people, but, so I appreciate you saying that, and
All right, so I don't know, you want me to just kind of go line by line here? I proposed the
well,
budget.
the major increases.
Okay, the major increases that I have, I think, let me get my list here. Going down, I think, is The parking control officer, I think, would be the biggest jump that I have, as I'm going down the list. I increased the parking control officers because I have this year tried to have 6 days a week of parking enforcement for the town. And it seems like it's been a real successful program. I have some figures that were provided from Jeff Welch, who does from Plymouth County, who does the management of the parking for us and the processing of the appeals and the citations. So through parking from 7/1/23 till yesterday, there was 873 tickets that were issued, and $26,640, which were collected. I think an important note to note also is, since we joined that program in November of 2022, we collected over $16,000 in unpaid tickets that were not being processed or being managed in any way. So we did recoup a lot of those funds. So I think by the increase, this gives me the ability to have that enforcement presence, Monday through Saturday, on a part-time basis. I currently have three part-time parking enforcement personnel that share the responsibility, and they seem to be doing a great job. So I just kind of like to keep that presence going. Going down, another increase I have was a slight bump into the stipend from $3,000 to $4,000. And what that is for is, last year the Accreditation Commission came out with the 6th edition, and they changed the rules in which you have to maintain your accreditation compliance with yearly checkups. It used to be at the end of the 3 years you'd get evaluated. Not only have they added additional standards and additional requirements to maintain your accreditation compliance, they've actually even upped the time frame in which you do it. I think the premise behind that plan, that change, was so when you come to the 3rd year, it doesn't take 3 days to get through the process, that they're going to do a little bit at a time. So when you get to that 3-year renewal mark, they know a lot of the work has already been done. So that final push will be much easier and much quicker for them on their end. They've also changed the software requirement of the policy management software, and so we were looking at an increase there too. And going down to another big jump you're going to see is in crime. No, it's not crime prevention. It's got it right here. Excuse me.
I think vehicular supplies looks like it's jumping quite a bit.
Yeah, vehicular supplies. What we've discovered is everything is just going way up as far as getting stuff repaired as we need it. Tires, batteries, oil, you name it. It's just increased dramatically, and to offset that, we have asked for an increase there, something a little bit more reasonable.
And Chief Story, this is Ann. I'm sorry, above was the
Sure thing,
additional equipment. Additional equipment goes up quite a bit from 1,500 to 5,000.
Yeah, let me get my sheet on that. Additional equipment. Hang on a second. I got so many pieces of paper here. Oh, yeah. So the additional equipment is this year I'm proposing to purchase an e-bike for the downtown patrol. And the cost of the e-bike is $5,500. And what that would allow us to do is have a bigger presence. We've taken a lot of time to the community has to adding the Riverwalk, expanding that. We're getting Lake Mansfield hopefully finished next year. So that'll give the officer the opportunity to actually be able to go up there and have a presence up there on the bike. I think of a regular manual bicycle going up that hill might be a little bit more challenging, but it would expand the patrol area for the for the bike patrol, which I'm hoping to get up and running this year. So that is the biggest increase, is the e-bike for that one. Also seeing subscriptions, there's an increase there, and that's just that's due to some software that we have to pay our licensing fees to. We had an additional $1,000 left to go for the final payment of the body cam project. That was based on because when I put in for the budget last year, I got the quotes for December 31st, and as the budget cycle processed through, we knew it was going to be an increase, and they had projected a certain percentage increase, which I calculated in, but it turned out to be slightly more. The new increase because we purchased them after the quote was issued, so we had a slight payment there that I have to cover for this year. And DTS, which is our DLR system, which is our recording system for any calls or radio transmissions inside the police station. 911, the state used to pay for that service, including our in-house recordings. This year, they still record 911 calls, but they do not record in-house or radio communications. So we applied for a grant and we got it through the state 911 to cover the cost of the equipment for that, and they have installed the equipment for that. However, they don't cover the cost for the Equiture, which is the company that manages the software for in-house recording. So that was something that kind of got thrown on us by the change in the state. So I had to add that in there.
Sorry, I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Chief Sorty, I just wanted to go back to the salary budget lines. Are we at full staff in terms of the patrol officers? We did bring overtime down, but now it's going back up, and it sounds like we've been using it more than we had planned.
Yeah.
Anticipated. So are we at full staff or?
I was really excited to be able to announce at the beginning of this budget process that for the first time in many, many years that we would be at full staff as of March 22nd this year. But unfortunately in January, I lost 2 officers and we are short again. So currently we're down 5 officers, full-time officer positions.
So but again, if we end up paying overtime, we're probably gonna come in under budget on salaries to some degree. I mean, I know overtime is probably more expensive.
Well, as you can see, we've been working short for many years now.
Right.
I was hoping this year that we would our staffing would be much better, but due to some unforeseen situations, illnesses, injuries, and departures, it has challenged us again.
Okay.
Any other questions? I'm sure there must be.
So I guess just to follow up to Ann's question, Chief. So the salary line, the patrol officer salary line there, that's based on the 15. And it I know you've said this before, but it slipped my mind. Is 15 what fully staffed, or would 20 be
19
fully?
19 is fully staffed,
Okay,
counting myself, 3 sergeants and 15 patrol officers. My long-term plan was to increase it by 1 this year, just to help cover some of the caseload and some of the seems like an increase in investigations that we're doing. We've seen a really change in the complexity of the investigations with like computers and that type of things that we didn't have in the past that seem to be really tapping our resources and which require also additional training for the officers to be able to do that. So we've seen an uptick in certain crimes that are more complex and time consuming to manage. And that's why originally I had started to see the trend going up a year ago or so, and I'm slowly was trying to build the staff to give us the ability to do that and not have to force people into work. But right now I'm really just focused on trying to maintain the staffing numbers that we'll have in March to get those 3 new officers trained and on the road and ready to work, and try to recruit for the 2 positions that I lost to replace those 2 positions. What I'm seeing is across not just Berkshire County, but across this profession that we used to be competitive salary wise, and it seems like smaller communities or other communities are challenging us to that, and that used to be attractive to us. And they're offering incentives for train people to go, because in the long term, it saves those municipalities, saves them money because they don't have to train an officer. They already come trained on somebody else's dime. So I'm really focused on, we got 7 officers with less than a year experience, or less than 2 years experience, I should say. And I really want to invest in them because we've invested so much time and funds already in them to make them succeed and have a nice career here. So once I am up to staff, like I said, I still have 2 openings. I have a plan in place that I'm working with Sophia on trying to look at options to maybe try to recruit officers that are trained. We've tried it in the past and haven't been successful. So we are going to try a couple different strategies to maybe do that. So that's why I need a little bit of flexibility in my budget to try to see if that can pay off for us in the long run.
Thank you.
Lee, go ahead.
Thank you, Chief. Just a question about the Berkshire County Sheriff's Office, and you mentioned that some of the investigations are more complex recently. Is there any way that we could tap into those resources more, or is that completely separate?
Yeah, that's absolutely part of it, Lee. Great questions. Yeah, so we work hand in hand with them. We do tap into their resources. We help, like we just did a recent case, a drug case, and we did all the legwork on it, but they came in and helped us when it came time to execute the search warrant. They're always there. The district attorney seems to be committed to helping all the surrounding communities for the bigger communities. I just utilized them today as a resource. But again, they don't have the staffing either. So they're there as a support for us, like to kind of support us, but they're not there to do the work for us. If that makes sense to you or answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else?
One thing I did
So-
forget, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
One
No,
thing
go ahead.
at the end that I have a new line, and sorry, I missed it, was I put in for $2,500 for interpreter services. Unfortunately, one of the officers I lost was Officer Huertas, who was our only Spanish speaking officer, and unfortunately he's not here. I'm hoping that someday he can return. But that really, it was a big hit to lose. And I've been working with a couple other community organizations, taking a different approach to trying to fill in that gap. And what we've learned over the years is that, trying to teach somebody a second language that isn't fluent in it or has a background in it is very, very difficult. So my plan is working with people within the community that are already bilingual to get them certified as a legal interpreter that we would have as a resource to bring in to help interpret for interviews, to take statements, to explain certain rights and things like that. So that's the money there was for that. Why I put that in there. It's just kind of a small amount. I discovered it's going to be more. I just got a quote yesterday just to get the certification training. It's a lot more than I thought. So I'm reaching out to some other partners that we have to try to see if there's any grants available to help cover the cost to get handful of residents that are bilingual to assist us and get certified in it. So that's what that line is for. So it's kind of just to bring it to our attention and at least put some funds there to cover that project.
Anyone else? So let's go to emergency services, since it's also yours, emergency management.
Sure. So emergency management, there's really not a large change, I don't believe. I think the biggest change we have is for the equipment and repairs. I believe the L65, that was level. It was for the contracted services. And let me just, Kara, could you just clarify that one for me? Oh, I don't have the, oh, here it is.
Chief, we're level on all of it. We've only increased,
I think it was $500, right?
and
Mhm.
Yeah.
The additional equipment line went up from 2,000 to
It's
2,500.
2,500. Yeah, that was the change. And again, that just goes down to the cost of everything to try to find any type of emergency equipment that's classified, that to use for that type of service. $2,000 doesn't go very far these days, unfortunately. So that's why I asked for a small bump just to help cover any of the equipment that we may need.
Any questions on emergency management? Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Sergeant Karlovic. Okay, next is page 15, and that's the fire department. Eileen, you have your hand up. I'm sorry.
Page 15. Oh, she was.
She was. You're right.
Eileen, your mic's open.
Okay, thank you. I just had a question for Chief Storty. And I apologize if you already explained this, but the co-responder was funded at 12,000 last year. And it doesn't seem to be funded for anything this year. Isn't that the mental health professional?
Yes, that's correct. So this year I wrote a grant for the community impact money, and I received that grant money to run that program. So that's why I did not fund that this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Fire department.
Things go through. Yeah, just hit that.
Yeah, just hit the highlights, that's all.
Under the salaries, there's a increase for the full-time firefighters and that.
15.
And that's accounting for annual step raises and cost of living.
We also added a new firefighter last year, this year, mid-year, so this budget accounts for full year salary, correct? Sorry, I didn't interrupt you, Chief.
That's right, thank you. Under equipment, maintenance and repairs, the increase there went from 60 to 72. As you can see, last year's year-end actuals under that account were 92,000. So what I tried doing the entire budget, and we get into that with the added line items, was try to separate what we had under the maintenance and repairs. Some of those items included testing equipment. So I separated those two, but for example, Bulldog, is a company that does the majority of the repairs on our apparatus. Last year, $68,000 went to them just for repairing all the apparatus. And I have a couple of lists that they created that has everything that needs to get repaired on each of our apparatus. So what we've kind of been doing and started before, Charlie was doing the same thing. Was working on the critical items that need to be repaired and kind of working down the list. And each year it's roughly the same amount, and the cost of that generally increases every year. And the cost of equipment testing only rises a little bit year to year.
Can that image change to, so we can see what he's referring to? And that's page 15.
Mhm.
Keep going.
Okay. And there's really no increases down to where I added 4 new line items. And the reason for that mainly is just because uniforms, some, like I said, the equipment testing, EMS licensing, and then the laundry services were kind of all put into one account, which was the firefighting supplies, which was kind of a catch-all. And for me, going through the budget prep, trying to separate all of that, for me, this is just a much easier process at the end of the year, knowing what we spent on each line item.
So, the supplies that you have there was another item that you were just breaking it down for another piece, because you went from 30. That was approved last year to 20 this year.
Correct.
Yeah, so you were
More accurate.
okay, so you are making it more granular. Yeah, okay.
Any questions? Comments? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Page 18, animal control.
Chefs here.
Is there any questions on that? That stayed exactly the same. Page 21, community services.
So, this account generally includes somewhere between $20,000 and $35,000 a year to provide mini grants to local nonprofits that provide services to our residents. The awards generally range in $1,000 to $6,000 range. Last year, we awarded 11 of them. And I want to just say, this was one of the last cuts I made when we were drafting this budget. Very, very difficult decision to make. But I thought I'd leave it up to you. I'd love to see it restored, but I don't think that the funding we're providing through this line to any of our community organizations is a real game changer. So that's that.
Mark, could you just speak a little bit to what organization you're receiving it in the past, like what kind of services?
Yeah, services, I don't have all that information in front of me, but I do have the list of awards from last year, or the list of recipients anyway. Vim, Construct, the Green Center, Berkshire South, Berkshire Pulse, Railroad Street Youth, Hevra, Elizabeth Freeman Center, Green Agers, Elder Services of the Berkshires, and the Berkshire Center for Justice.
Okay, so it's pretty broad, yeah.
It's been a discussion, and we're not gonna discuss it, obviously, we're not discussing any of this tonight. I'll just say this has been a discussion over the years, because we're dealing with taxpayers' money, and the taxpayers can actually decide how they wanna give their money, as opposed to us deciding how to give it, but it's still a major change in
Yeah.
philosophy for what we've done. So.
I mean, yeah, when I saw this, it was heartbreaking, but I understood why and.
Yeah,
This
the
is,
first budget request, first round, as you can see, had $30,000 in that line, but
no, I get it.
difficult decisions were required.
We'll come back to that probably tomorrow night, so. Veterans Affairs, page 23.
The only notable change this year is that the VFW, if you look at the VFW lease, the second line down. The VFW requested an increase from $21,600 this year to, which is $1,800 a month, to $30,000 a year or $2,500 a month. In the form of our subsidy from the town. As you recall, this is a new line and we added, I think this was added on the floor of town meeting last year, right? It was a last minute request. Unfortunately, again, difficult decision. I wasn't able to support the additional $8,400, but I did recommend level funding for that one.
Questions? Tom Beasley has his hand up. Right.
Mark, well, the hand's getting, getting
Yeah.
audio. What's Veterans District again? What is the line Veterans District? What is that?
That's our share of the veterans, the regional.
Right,
district.
got it. Okay, I knew it was something. Okay, thanks.
Tom Beasley.
Hi,
go ahead.
everybody. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, Tom Beasley, Director of Veteran Services. Thanks for having me. Yes, just real quick. The account on the left, 57701, the Veterans District is actually the Great Barrington's apportionment for the district itself, which is based on the 2020 census. And then the account on the left, 57700, Veterans Benefits, that's actually, looks like we're coming in high due to the fact that that will vary depending on how many clients I have in Great Barrington and how many veterans families may need assistance for burials. But that's it for me. I want to thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions on that? Okay, moving ahead to boards and commissions, page 26. Yeah.
Okay, so on boards and commissions, requests from the various boards and commissions listed here on this page 26. Requests came in at $39,000 over last year, or about 195% increase. Again, difficult decisions needed to be made, so I scaled back a number of these requests to keep our budget as level as possible.
Can you elaborate a bit on the rationale for the two historic districts asking for that increase?
I did give a handout.
Oh.
that John.
John, do you want to speak to that?
Sure.
Does everyone have a copy of the handout?
This is a year, to some degree, I consider this a level funded budget, even though it's 500% increase. The initial request was for our typical 5,000 that we've had yearly. The next item that's involving, we have some money from CPA grants that we agreed to use some of our funds to match those grants. We'll follow that process. That was money, these grants have been in process for about 3 years. This is old money that we didn't spend in my concept here, that was taken back, reclaimed from us over the last 3 or 4 years. Because we usually never spend our 5,000. What's happening this year is in anticipation of work being done in town hall and the site work, 2 items that typically the historic district has covered in our budget is one, the maintenance of Wayne Liberty statue up front. And that was, it's estimated to be $9,000. What happens is yearly you fund the historical commission to do the cleaning and restoration of the Newsboy statue. So every year they do funds that statue and complex. The stone is with the water in it needs to be checked and restored and maintained on a yearly basis. The Wing Liberty out front is periodic every 3 to 4 years. So this is, and now it would be $9,000 for that. And that's anticipation that you do the site work, and then the statue would be cleaned during debris, and they do a re-wax of it too. Highlighting that, about probably 15 years ago, the statue was almost lost. It was rusting. Luckily, I don't know the whole history of it, but somehow it was x-rayed and taken down and restored. The statue, there's a globe, the foot of the statue, that was rusted, and that had lost that. The whole statue to restore it would have been a costly item. Since I submitted that initially, I also came up with 2 more needs, and one is the Excedra seating out front, which, if there's work to be done, that needs to be cleaned and resealed again. And I brought it forward too, because the bushes, plantings around it are still encroaching upon it. What that does is mildew growing on the back of the stonework there. So when they're gonna have to cut back the bushes, there was talk of them being removed in the site work, but I don't think they are now. So they will be cleaned and sealed up again. If both of these items would only be after the work, any work at town hall site. And then additionally, I'm asking for expediting our commission, our members, to restore us this clerical position that we didn't use. We do need someone to attend our meetings, take the notes, and produce the notes. Right now, as chairman, I'm doing that, and I think that's a burden to put onto any future chairmen, and that we really do. And also, there's a tremendous amount of paperwork that we have when we get an application for a certificate of appropriateness, that now I'm hauling to my house to distribute to people to bring back to the meetings. It's just a senseless, I mean, it seems to make a lot of sense to do that all at once. And so that would bring it up to 26,000 for the current fiscal year. And in anticipation that these are all one-time charges, our typical budget next year for fiscal 26 would be 5,000 for the basic and 3,000 for the clerical.
Any questions of them? Go ahead, and then I'll let Malcolm.
All right, I have a question. So I guess I don't understand the CPA, CPC grants, so that you're requesting that from CPA, the CPC, or
We
where?
already have the grants.
Oh, you have the grant.
We have a grant, let me explain. Like, for instance, on the trolley shelter up at Belcher Square that was restored by the Historical Commission. Initially, the Historical Commission paid for an analysis of the project. And then we came up with a budget for construction, of which the DPW solicited the professional services for the bid documents. And the Historical Commission went to the CPA to get money to do the $60,000 worth of work there. This is a similar that we agreed to provide funds for it and getting $20,000 in grants from CPA.
And the remaining 5 is an agreement you had to pay that 5?
Yeah, I mean, that was what we were offering to do. There's certain things that we said, we're gonna do this, like signage for Taconic West Historic District was something we were proposing that we need to do for the grant money. CPA, CPC likes matching monies.
So you're asking for 5,000 to match what the CPC.
That we would have spent 2 or 3 years ago. The grants got delayed due to COVID. Getting expediting those, the bidding for the monies that are being spent for the grant.
Let me get Malcolm and then Malcolm, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to very briefly say that although we're disappointed that our budget request was reduced, we're grateful that the town manager recognized the need to plan for migration and display for historical artifacts. And that's what the increase represents. Many of you know that we have archives sitting in Ramsdale up on the second floor at Ramsdale. It's not a good situation with the heat and the humidity for sensitive documents. Someday we have to get them out of there. This budget request will not get them out of there, but it'll be a first step toward moving in a consolidation with the Historical Society, who has the means for displaying the archives, and we're hoping in the future to move towards moving the archives to a new home, perhaps to the Historical Society, perhaps to some other town building.
Thank you, Malcolm. Lynn?
Thank you. So just make sure I'm reading this right. So you're seeking 26,000 and the town manager is recommending 5,000?
Yeah, that's why.
So that's
500%.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
I figure, I just want to make sure
Okay.
I say a question. So, if, let's say, you have 5,000 and not the 26,000, what would you be able to do with that? Or is there going to be a serious, loss to the
Well,
town?
None of it
It's
would get
gonna-
done. I mean, that's kind of, those items. Well, the way,
How would you
Wing Liberty and
prioritize the
secret
5,000?
seating, for
Yeah,
instance.
yeah.
That we're carrying in our budget would probably sneak over into Joe Averdale's budget and be done there. Because they're gonna have to be done to preserve the items. We've sort of taken it on, both the Historical Commission for the Newsboy and the Historic District for Wing Liberty here in Exedra. It's easier for us to get in contact with the experts who do this type of work. We have contact with those. So we get the source of it, and so we've carried it in here, it's getting done that way. If not, if we didn't have it here, Joe would have to go over and solicit proposals from professionals to say, how are you gonna do the work? And then go out to bid with it and do it the same way we're doing. But we have contacts through, our historic agencies and referrals that we get the sources of the people to do it.
So to follow up, you're saying that this work can be shifted to the DPW and that they.
Well, it would have to be if we're gonna maintain these.
So Joe might have a say in that too.
But Joe, we've talked about, this has been done for a number of years this way,
Mhm.
because it's easier for us to make sure that it got done. Instead of Joe having, and Sean before, instead of them carrying these line items in their big budgets, we used our expertise as volunteers
Mhm.
to get people to do the work.
So are the workers that you'd be hiring considerably charge more than the DPW crew doing it? Like, are we having?
No, but they just would have to, he would have to go through, if he didn't ask us, he'd have to go out and ask professionals what to do, how to do things.
No.
And preserving these historic elements.
So this work would be done somehow? Whether.
Yeah, I mean,
you or
it's
DPW.
gonna have to be done, and it's gonna be done for similar
Okay.
costs. I can't. One thing is we're doing it easier
Yeah,
as our commission, as opposed to burdening the DPW with another item.
okay, great, thank you.
I guess just one, I got two questions, but one, just to make sure, it's kind of, I'm asking the same questions they did, basically, but I guess looking at budget request, under the Historic Commission, it says 17, and then under Historic District Commission, it says 19. I guess, so the 26 is a combination of both, that doesn't add up there, so I guess I was just curious to.
But no, this was initially, my budget request was 19,000.
So
Okay.
just so everybody understands, this is always confusing to me. It shouldn't be, but it is. Don represents the Historic District Commission,
Right.
not the Historic District. It's not the Historic Commission.
Yeah.
So,
They just.
Okay, so that's a totally different line than
Okay.
It is.
talking about.
Yeah.
All right, okay, so that number says 19.
and then he's
You
raised
just
it.
added.
He added, yeah.
Okay,
And I came for more.
so then, so the second part of the
Since I had to
question.
come here, I
Right,
figured.
why not ask?
Well, you
Why
know,
not try?
I go full.
Okay.
Well,
So then, I guess, when we discussed the Winged Liberty and, you know, the town hall campus, these requests were never in the original design talk.
No, not at all. I mean, this
Of
would be,
the upgrade.
the only reason they are due to be done,
Mhm.
see, the Wing Liberty needs to be done.
Whether
right
we're
about
doing
now.
the building or not, the campus grounds or not.
Right, you know, that's good, that needs to be done. But the person that we have used before said he wouldn't want to do it until after they had gotten all the construction done, which makes total sense. So hopefully, both of those items will not take place until the work is done on here. Now, this gets us the money to pay for it. Those two items of maintenance after the construction work is done.
Can I ask you, so what does the line called basic, what does it cover for you?
I'm sorry, the line.
The line that says basic for $5,000? What is?
Well, that's our typical year, you know, what we would have that budgeted each year.
Right, but I mean,
$5,000.
how do you use them, those funds usually?
Well, this year, some of the money went for the costs of the transformer grant, or the electrical cabinet. Graphics that we installed around town.
Yeah, okay.
That came from both the cost, the initial cost for the first one came from the Historic District Commission.
Mhm.
The costs were then split between the two budgets of the Historical Commission and the Historic District Commission. That would be something typically. we
So
would do.
there would be some kind of a initiative you would have that you would use those funds for this coming year?
Yeah, I mean, I can't, I mean, the committee has to agree, commission has, the members have to agree with what to
Right.
spend, but I mean, we have things that we are pending, you know, various things we'd like to do.
Okay.
They're not huge things, but there's
Right.
a couple of small things that
Okay.
that we have in mind to do.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, but will we get into what the historical commission?
Yeah, we will, the Historic Commission.
Presume that?
No.
Okay, so are we done with Don?
Well, then,
Tonight?
and then you referred to the society, which is, that's the private organization.
Malcolm
referred to that.
referred to that.
Okay, so that.
That is
So I
nothing-
keep my mind straight, that's the separate organization.
Correct, there's three
South
organizations
Town.
that we deal with,
Okay.
you need a whiteboard to separate them.
But, because I've served on all, I know that the Historical Commission, they're, part of their duties is to work with receiving things that can be transferred to the Historical Society.
Okay.
There's some interaction there.
All three groups have a good relationship. So let's go to Malcolm now. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to Malcolm and have you talk about and this is historical commission, which had a request of 17,000 and right now it's at 10,000.
Correct. And our routine expenses have to do with archiving the historic archives that are up in Ramsdale. As Don mentioned, the box graphics. We also annually have the Newsboy statue cleaned and refinished. And then this year, we are, trying to take some baby steps towards. Many of you may not be aware that the Historical Commission and the Historical Society work closely together, and we do have overlapping collections. If you go upstairs in Ramsdale, it'd be hard to distinguish except where it's stored. What's the Commission's property? What's the Society's property? Because they're very similar. And so, if you're putting together an exhibition of historical archives with a particular theme, you would most likely use both society and commission property for that. Right now, we don't have anything at the society. The society isn't, the Wheeler House is not ready for commission property be displayed, and that's part of what this increase in funds would go towards. We could have used more money, but we'll make good use of whatever money the you guys feel fit to, and the town meeting feels fit to grant.
Malcolm, just between this society and the commission, I think it's interesting. Do you have a ballpark number of archives that we actually have? The numbers,
I
huge,
mean,
I know.
the entire Don Victor collection is up there. We have at least 100 boxes of archives, but plus cabinets full of old town records.
Yeah, I know the society, I've heard the numbers 50 to 70,000 items. You know, the pictures and everything. There's a lot of things up there.
There is a
it's
lot.
not small.
It's not a small
Question.
problem, and you know, sooner or later, we're gonna have to come up with some alternate place to store the archives, because they really are in jeopardy being stored up there in Ramsdale, but right now, there's not a better alternative.
Go ahead, Bill. Yeah, there's a lot of background I don't have on this, because I'm so young, obviously, I know.
Yes.
But, has it ever been considered to combine these two entities? Would there be any benefit to that? Is that even possible?
No, the commission being a town organization has certain benefits, and then the society being a private organization has benefits in the sense that they can, raise funds and sell things in different ways than the commission can. So.
No, I hear you. I was referring to the two entities on our budget.
Oh,
here.
you mean the Historic Commission, the Historic District Commission?
Yeah,
They're both authorized by different acts of the legislature and have different charters, really. The Historic District Commission is in charge of the historic district. And the Historical Commission is really in charge of promoting the historical awareness and in the town and historical preservation in general.
No, I hear you. Thank you. Go ahead, Blake.
So the society fundraises, would there ever be a time if there was, if there was not enough money to fill the gaps that the historical commission or the district needed? Is there any kind of ever crossover with funds, or that the society would step in and help, or?
So let me answer that. I'm on the board of the society, just to confuse things more. And that's not what tonight's about, but I'll just add that in. The society is a completely private group. And I'm not sure that it would be appropriate for them to share money with town groups. I'm just not sure how that would work. There's a lot of working together, and there's a lot of cooperation, but I'm not sure how. And to be honest with you, anyone on the society knows we don't have a lot of money.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention by the frequency of their fundraising letters, I think they have the same challenge that every nonprofit has.
Yeah, and if in the future, it turns out that it makes sense for the historical commission archives to be stored in the society, I think there would have to be some money from the commission that would have to go and help prepare for that. Whatever we do to get the stuff out of Ramsdale is going to cost money, but if it was the society was the best home for it, there have to be some money, town money involved.
Yeah, I mean, the society is trying to get a grant and maybe successfully for an archivist for 2 years. And the commission has not asked for that, but that's like a $100,000 item, but eventually we have to do something with our archives to protect them. So, the 17,000 or the 10,000 is really a drop in the bucket for what they need. Okay, any other questions? Malcolm, thank you. Don, thank you.
Thank you.
Celebration and events, page 27.
Okay, so once again, out of necessity, I reduced our celebrations line by $4,000. What that means is that our donations to Berkshire Bus, to the Chamber of Commerce to help fund the summer programming downtown on Friday and Saturday nights and the holidays roll would have to be reduced significantly.
Can we keep the fireworks? They're really fun.
Not my decision, but I agree.
Any questions? Eventually, we'll come back to this. Maybe.
The balance of that funding will be used for changing out the banners on Main Street in Great Barrington. Replacing banners that are worn out or need to be replaced for some other reason. We sometimes use it to buy plaques and awards for people we're recognizing, and we also assist with the cost of some other town events that pop up throughout the year.
Any questions? Okay. Berkshire Hills Regional School District. It's a separate item, it's not our budget.
So thanks for. So you want me to share the summary sheet on the screen? Is that helpful?
Yeah, I'm don't see this back, but then probably.
People online.
And we can get an electronic copy of this to use, you can include it in the minutes and everything. So thanks for letting us come and talk us a little bit. Some of you attended our budget meeting the other day, either in person or online, which is our first presentation of the budget. We're gonna do that. We'll revisit it like again, but this is a super high level summary. This is a tough budget year for the schools, or the district as well as it is for you. And what I thought I'd share in the first few pages are slides of reductions we're making in each of the buildings in the district office, and I'll talk to that quickly. And then I'll get to the assessment sheet, which is the thing you're most interested in, because that drives the town's budget. So we've had some shifts in enrollment, and we're proposing reducing a position at the elementary school, one of our likely kindergarten sections from 4 sections currently to 3 next year. And we can do that from a numbers perspective. At the middle school, we are also planning on reducing one full-time equivalent position, and potentially might move that person to another building where there are other needs. At the high school, it's a little more nuanced, and I'll explain it to you in terms of total number of positions, but then even within that there's some changes. So we're doing a lot of work there with CVTE, like the vocational things, but we're reducing half a math position, we're reducing a social studies position, and we're reducing 1 additional position, but it doesn't just translate to, like a typical teacher in a high school teaches 5 classes. Because many people are certified in multiple areas, reducing a social studies position doesn't mean we're losing 5 sections of social studies. It means we're gonna lose 5 sections total, but 3 of them will be social studies classes. And then we'll pull a science teacher who has another certification to cover that, right? And the additional reduction is largely a special ed position, and the numbers have changed there. But we're gonna cover that by having likely 2 English teachers take on part of what was happening there. Then at the district level, we had a big discussion about this. I initially proposed eliminating our diversity, equity, inclusion and belonging position. There was a quick, and very vocal response to that. We're not gonna do that, but we're gonna fund that position out of a state rural aid grant. So we're keeping the role, but it's coming out of our district budget, but it's covered by this grant. If you turn to the next page, where it says page 1, that's the assessment fee, and we can go through both pages, but I think the big thing is the percent increase to Great Barrington, which is in the middle and far to the right, 3.48%, and that's an increase of $738, so $707,138. And then you see Stockbridge below it, which from a percentage, you bit above, but from a total amount, it's quite a bit less. And then West Stockbridge below, which from a total amount is quite a bit less, but from a percentage, it's really double.
Just so everyone knows, if you're watching at home or looking at the screen, numbers on the screen are slightly different. I think it's probably has to do with a minimum local contribution, and when this was printed, it's a very fluid. The budget becomes very fluid when we're talking about state funding.
Steve, I think what's on the screen is our second page of the assessment, so I'm not sure. if that-
Yeah, it is a second. Yeah.
Okay, it's the second
Yeah.
page,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm not sure what's different.
One's
One is
operating.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Operating.
The one that affects us the most is the one that's operating and
And
capital.
Okay.
Right, and then the one thing you will notice is if so the first one is, the operating and capital, that was the one I was just referencing. The next one is just the operating, and then the one after that is the capital, and you'll notice quite a significant decrease there, and that's because we retired the debt on the elementary and middle school, which until recently we called our new schools. But if you stay around and do this for a while, those new schools are 20 years old.
No.
Right.
No.
Yeah. So the good news is that it's happened. So we're still, we're carrying an investment there to support future projects and opportunities. So that's sort of it. I'm happy to respond to questions. Sharon's here to respond to questions as well. Usually at this level, we talk about the total thing, but if you have individual questions about lines or lines in the budget,
Question, could you just give us an idea? I mean, you have cuts here, but what I don't see are the enrollment numbers.
yeah,
So obviously there is a trend here, right, that you are responding.
Yeah, I mean, the overall enrollment is very similar to what it's been the last several years. I think as of today, it was 1,216 students. And last year, it was right around that, but, yeah, so the numbers went up a little bit.
Sorry, could you just break it down? Because you are combining kindergarten.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously we want to see how the young ones.
Yeah, is it in the
are trending.
Exactly, no, that's in our one.
Okay, so I don't have that sheet with me right now. In the elementary and middle school, it's right around 350, 360.
So is it going up, down, about the same?
Let me come back to you with,
Okay.
full analysis of it. What's interesting is this year's, ninth grade class is a particularly small class. We carry classes in the high school from anywhere from like 90 to 138 students. So the 11th grade class, I think, is 138 students this year, but the ninth grade class is quite small. But the class we graduated last year was similar in size to this year's junior class. Okay. So, the Yeah, so I mean, our early kindergarten is larger because we're offering two sections of it. Our kindergarten now is 51. 8 years ago, it had 72 students, but the couple of years before this year was 44, 46, 46, 51. So we sort of had a little dip and then it's coming back. Fourth grade is 59, last year was 52, the year before it was 45, 46, 56. But in 2015, it was 60. So they go up and down a little bit, and it changes from year to year. I think our enrollment overall is fairly stable.
Okay, so what you're saying, your total numbers would be more or less trending to the same level?
Yeah,
It depends which grades they would go
it
up and
changes a
down.
little bit grade to grade, but the
Grade,
total
but
number,
would be
a little bit above 1,200,
Okay.
I think will hold. And it might even go up, and then if we talk at some point about the potential for a building or something, then the state and we anticipate a slight bump. If we were to build it.
If you were to build it, if you were to.
Or renovate
expand,
building,
right.
and then connected to that is expanding
Mhm.
vocational
Right,
opportunities.
yeah, that's
Like
quite
also,
important, yeah.
doable. Yeah.
Yeah, just a couple questions, actually. So related to that, how many students are doing Voc this year, do we know? And Voc that we,
Right, so
That go to
right
the-
now we've got 3 approved chapter 74
In-
programs, which
in-house.
is like the gold standard in Massachusetts, and those are in automotive, horticulture and early childhood education, and the early childhood education was just approved this past year. Do you have?
no, that's sort of, are there students who are going to Pittsfield again this year? Do you know
There
how many?
are, one from Great Barrington and I think, and 2 from Stockbridge.
Okay.
The more programs we have, the greater likelihood that fewer students
Well,
will
right,
go
yeah,
there.
no.
But they have even sort of at full capacity, I don't imagine they'll offer more than 5 or 6 vocational programs. So they'll likely offer something that we don't offer that might be particularly interesting to somebody. We've even had somebody go like to Smith Vocational, which is on the other side past Westfield, because they offered a highly specialized program. I don't think we have anybody there.
Okay, and I think in the past you've done, sort of public meetings, is that happening again?
Well,
Do you
this
have
is,
a date yet?
we have done, and it's interesting, we used to schedule a meeting for all the select boards and all the finance
yeah.
committees. And the last several times we've done it, you can count the people on one hand who came. So we weren't, necessarily, Steve and I talked about this the other day, we weren't necessarily planning on doing it, but we do have our public hearing coming up on the 29th, or 28th, sorry.
There is a 29th this year.
It is the 29th? Coming up on the 29th, and that would likely cover all
The same types of
the
stuff.
same information.
Bill, in the past, we've had to, come up with some additional funds to bus the students who are taking vocational up in Pittsfield, if I remember correctly. Is
That's
that?
in your special articles.
It's on the special.
Okay, right. And on the DEIB position that you're using, now using the district budget, did something get bumped out of the district budget to pay for that?
No, we're doing the opposite. So that position was funded in the district budget, and we're moving it to a rural aid grant.
Okay, what you said, all right,
It's changed since this was planned.
okay. So,
Yeah, so there's like a little note in the bottom. So I presented this a week ago, or just about, last Thursday. And the response was so dramatic and vocal by everybody that it was clear that it was
yeah, I respect that and no need to cover that again, but I'm just trying to understand, if you responded to the community and put that back into the budget, then did something get pushed aside?
No, we didn't, we're covering the cost of it from a grant outside of the budget, so it's not changing the numbers in the budget at all.
So it's still as if it got eliminated from your budget, because you don't have it in there, it's coming in.
It got eliminated from the district budget, but it's being covered by a grant budget.
So let me ask the other way.
Yeah,
I know the
I'm
answer.
sorry if I'm
That's, no, that's okay. Was there something that grant was gonna be used for that now we're not gonna be able to fund because of that?
No, I see, that's what you're asking, yeah, no, so all those grant funds hadn't been committed yet, so that afforded us the flexibility.
I got a
Yeah.
question. With this budget in general and, just curious of staff number for just the whole district, like how many people receive a check from the district?
It's interesting because they're in lots of different categories. I was looking at a report the other day. I think the number of teachers is 111. And I may be off by one or two. So the total number is 272, but that includes a number of administrators, right? So principal and assistant principal in each building. Sharon and I in the district office, Steve, the director of operations. There's one instructional coach. There are, and this is sort of echoing what Chief Storty said about his staffing. So there are 3 people that work in each of the kitchens, plus the food service director. And while I'd love for those positions to always be filled, they're not always filled, right? So that's a tension. Day and night custodians in each of the 3 buildings and 3 people on the maintenance team. And then a whole number of coaches, some of them that work for us, and some like there are teachers that are coaching, and then some that work outside that receive a small stipend to coach.
Yeah, so 272 total employment, and that's part-time, full-time, and stipend people.
Yeah,
That's
all the full time.
That's right, but well, that
272 is full-time.
it's FTEs. So, right, we have like one kitchen person who's a 0.57, but
Yeah.
we wanted to count people.
And then in addition to that, there's our after school or out of school time program, and that's almost entirely grant funded, and there are a number of people in different roles there. Some are full-time, some are very part-time enough that they're teaching like a class 1 day a week or 2 days a week.
I have a question. So, and I don't see the details, so maybe, asking questions that don't make sense. However, you're basically proposing to eliminate some positions, so I would imagine there will be savings, right? Your operating budget is roughly 1.5 million higher. So where is the expense coming from?
Yeah, so we have a much longer presentation, and it's on
No, I
our
understand that. I
on
mean,
our
this is
website,
okay.
and
Yeah.
we can send the links with you about that. Most of our budget is in people and benefits, and then, right, like 80+% of the budget is in.
Right, and I understand that, yeah.
And so all of that is tied to negotiated
So there's going to be an increase.
contractual increases, right? So that's the big bulk of it.
Right.
Then sort of there's smaller categories, and those include utilities and transportation,
Okay,
and things like that, and those are all also going up.
okay. And would you have by any chance, a number that would show the savings of your proposed cuts? What are the representatives?
It's over $500,000.
500,000?
Yeah, and it's slightly different depending on who is in the role that we're not gonna have anymore.
Right, but I'm not looking at the total number, just to understand the
Yeah,
dynamics of
Yeah,
about 500,000.
Go ahead, Ann.
I just want to return to the DEI position. So it's being funded by a grant. Is that a 1-year grant? Is it an ongoing grant? I mean, so does it make the position particularly vulnerable?
I don't think so, and the shift we might make is in the future to bring it back into the budget and fund something else out of it, but at this point, that it seemed to make sense. The grant is not, it's a state grant that's grown every year quite dramatically over the last several years, so I don't think there's any risk of the money drying up. I think, there's even the possibility that,
But can you hire someone for an ongoing position, or it's a one-year contract position if it's?
no, we can hire somebody for it. Because that's terrible, right? So
Well, that's why I was
if
asking.
you try to hire somebody and you say it's grant funded
And
and
it's only a
we don't
year.
know if we're gonna have it, and some other place can hire somebody out of some other budget and the reality is nothing is really permanent.
Obviously,
In any
because
context, right,
it's a budget.
But I
Yeah.
could talk to somebody in an interview with confidence that that's something that both our community and I care about and we're committed to continue.
Anyone else?
So my last question is, can we see the detailed budget somewhere?
Yeah, so I mean, there's this, which, we can get you a copy of it. There, it's also, it's in the libraries.
It's in the libraries, it's here.
Okay.
So
I can
it's
just borrow a
online.
copy and return it.
It's online,
That's fine,
and you could go, I mean, it's sort of cuckoo, like you could, I was talking to the librarian today about something. And you could go like line by line, and there's $350 for supplies for the library, right? Like you can see that granular level,
Sure.
level of detail.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Okay, the last one on the agenda tonight is special article section 9. So, Mark, why don't you go through the ones that are recommended?
Let me just get it. Okay, so there were 12 items identified as special articles this year. They're all listed in tab 9 of your budget binders. I wasn't able to recommend many of them. You can see in my right-hand column here, mostly because these requests are generally funded by using free cash. So every dollar that hits that right column is a dollar of free cash that we do not have to reduce the tax burden on property owners. So again, difficult decisions. We are applying $3,675,000 of free cash to the tax levy this year.
What was that number?
$3,675,000. So in an ideal world, again, I would support every single one of these requests. But I was trying to preserve that free cash for reducing the tax burden. So the first item on the list is the community impact funding. Level funded again at $500,000. This is not free cash that we can generally access. As you know, this is the CIF portion of the free cash that's reserved for specific.
Can I just ask, why is that even called free cash? Because it's not really free for us to do with what we want. Can we call it something else or not?
The DOR called it free
Okay.
cash.
All right,
If you want to ask the CCC, they'll call it something else, but that's okay.
yeah.
So I know we've talked about this in the past, but it depends on which agency you ask. The CCC tells you
I
one
know.
thing, the DOR tells you another. We're internally accounting for it. So we have it separated out.
Yeah, I see it's in the report.
Yeah, so another $500,000 for community impact funding.
Want an and an hour.
I'm sorry.
And the end, do you want an hour?
Oh, do you mind if I run through these?
Yeah, that's what I go.
Berkshire Hills Regional School District vocational tuition and transportation. We just touched on that briefly. We are required by statute to provide tuition and transportation for students that choose vocational programs outside of the district. This year we had one. We budget for 2 every year just in case. And of course, if we don't use it, the free cash just rolls back, the unspent funds roll back to free cash.
So the budget, you're just budgeting for 2. Just as a safety.
Right, so two tuitions and two transportation costs.
Didn't we purchase a van or a car? or
We did, so
something?
last year, this number was at 140,000, does that sound right? We've reduced it significantly now because we purchased a van. And we're taking advantage of our transit program here in town to transport those students to and from school every day.
Are we taking soccer students in our van?
We are, and we're,
So how does that work?
so they're paying a portion of that transportation, they're paying half the transportation cost. So we'll be billing them, invoicing them at the end of the fiscal year for that cost.
Just to be clear, the transportation cost is funded through this line. It's not funded through the microtransit budget, correct?
Moving on down to emergency medical services. I know we have some folks from SBA who will speak on that. $205,326. Number 8 here is $15,000 for legal fees. Again, this is a portion of that community impact funding free cash that we're anticipating will be used for cannabis related legal items. And the last topic here, number 11, courthouse upgrades, $200,000. We did touch on this at an earlier meeting, but we are in the process of renegotiating a new 10-year lease with the district court. And we will be required to do some maintenance to the building, and that's what this will fund. We will recoup that expense over the course of the 10-year lease.
Is there any chance that the legal fees could come out of the community impact funding since it's related to cannabis?
They will. So
Instead of having a separate 15,000, could it be rolled into this?
So make that 500,000
Yeah.
and
If
say
it is a
15.
direct impact. to us.
Yes, so couldn't that, we could get rid of that line, number 8. and
Right, well, I think what she's saying is just have 500,000, just eliminate the 15 and award 485,000.
and just eliminate
Yeah.
lining
Yeah.
altogether.
Mm,
We're not gonna decide that tonight, but that's definitely a possibility.
So we have one less.
Yeah.
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 We could do that, or we could change that to 515.
Unless article will probably be cleaner.
Yeah.
I don't know, just my opinion.
More for emergency medical services.
So let's,
Sorry, yeah.
before we do that, we're gonna go through each one of the 5 of these more detail. So if you wanna wait till they make their
I just want
presentation.
to ask one thing, which kind of is related to that,
Go ahead.
which is that we never really got any financials from them.
We're gonna talk about that tonight.
Are we
that's what
gonna
I'm saying.
get them?
Yeah, they're here, so,
Okay,
let's,
okay.
let's talk about that, that's
Right.
made a definite consideration, you're correct. So let's start with the community impact funding of 500,000. Amanda Timpain is on the line, she has a request.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we're just doing the ones that there are people here to speak about
No.
first.
We're doing the 5 funded ones, and then we can talk about the other ones when we're done.
500.
Yes. Because the other ones really aren't gonna decide tonight anyways, but we can briefly touch on the other ones.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I'll keep listening when you figure out what it does.
I can do it any way you want,
So I just, we skipped over all the reserve fund transfers because that's just on us and there's no one to speak.
which one are you talking about?
The stabilization, I'm sorry, the
None of
stabilization.
those are recommended by the town manager, we're only doing the recommended ones.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize.
Yeah, none
They're
of,
not recommended.
everything, there are 12 line items here.
Yeah.
Only 5 are recommended, so we're doing those first.
Okay,
And we can
Gotcha.
come back to all that.
We can
okay,
come back.
I
to
just
all of
didn't
them.
see that.
Whether
some were
tonight or
recommended.
tomorrow night or
Yeah.
next Tuesday, yeah, that's
Okay,
my
I get it.
rationale, it may not make any sense, but I thought we would try
Okay,
it that
so
way.
there are 5 recommended and all the rest are
Or
on us.
not recommended, it was reduced from 1.7 million to 1 million. So Nanda, go ahead.
Hi, Steve. Thank you. I am here to request that additional money be allocated from the Community Impact Fund in free cash to the fund, to the warrant this year, to increase that by $1 million so that it's 1.5 million. And the reason I'm making the request is that Railroad Street Youth Project has a capital project that would meet the requirements of that funding that we'd like to be able to apply to the town for. And in order to be able to make that application, the funds would have to be available.
So just to be clear, Mark didn't cut this out. As you can see, the request amount, this is a new request that's come in the last few days, week, for us to use out of the community impact funding free cash. So we don't have to decide that tonight, but that is something you can ask and answer questions. And, whether tonight or tomorrow night or next Tuesday, it's.
Can you just sketch that out very briefly?
Sure,
What's
so,
that?
for those of you who are familiar with Railroad Street and those of you who aren't, we're located at the Schneider Youth Building, by the skate park and the bridge on Bridge Street. And we rent that building from the Great Barrington Youth Foundation. And we have just voted as a board with the support of the Great Barrington Youth Foundation to embark on a strategic plan that includes adding a floor, which would allow us to move our counseling services, which are targeted specifically at supporting youth with substance use or at risk for substance use disorder, and our prevention programming, which is specific to preventing substance use among teens and young people in the community. So it would allow us to locate all of those programs, all of our programs, including the pro-social work that is currently funded through the community impact funding. It allow us to locate all of that in a central, easily accessible location for youth to be able to walk into.
Where is that location now, since you don't have that floor?
That location would be a second floor on the building that we're currently in.
No,
where is
but
it now?
where is it now?
We're in offices on the third floor of the Tom's Toys building. A collection of offices throughout the floor.
Amanda, and so the CCC or the Cannabis Control Commission has already said that this would fall under their community impact guidelines?
No.
Mm.
We.
To the extent that the way that
Answer first. It's not set up. The CCC is not set up to approve how we spend it. They have guidelines and we decide whether we meet those guidelines or not.
And our project meets all of the town's existing guidelines for funding.
We spent a lot of time on that last year, I think, trying to understand all the rules. we're
Yes,
using each fund.
I've been with you all on that journey and I've been with the journey on the state as well, and it is specific.
Okay, no, I agree. Okay, thank you. Ann?
No, I mean, I think just the issue is, if then 5 years from now, the state says you can't use this money except for limited things, or if the lawsuit. Oh, I'm sorry. My understanding is there are lawsuits at the state level right now where the cannabis companies are saying they shouldn't have had to pay this. Am I remembering this
I
correctly?
think there are some legal challenges,
Right.
but we feel confident that.
We do.
that
Oh, okay.
The funding that we've collected will not need to be returned.
Eventually we'll be used. Okay.
Sounds like a terrific idea.
Yeah, again, it's really there.
I got
Yeah.
a couple questions. So one, just on the original cost requested amount that you have here, Mark, we did, for some reason, I was thinking we've normally done 350 or 300, even out of this, am I wrong, or?
The first year was 185. I think we did 2 years of 350. Last year was 500.
Last year was 500?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Community Impact Funding Committee has been asking us to increase it every year, likely based on the applications they're receiving and the demand for that funding.
And then, and maybe this is farther in the book, but what is, I know it all falls under free cash, but we're keeping those numbers separate. What is that number right now that's set aside for this community impact funding?
You did give
Or
it.
something.
Yeah. I think it was 4 point something million.
I believe it's 4.4 million.
Yeah.
Got 5.
So is that what's available right now?
With the use of 500,000 and 15,000.
With that already taken out of it.
And that's completely in discussion of how we want to Exactly, so we get more if we wanted to, less.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Are we asking Ananda questions tonight?
Yeah,
too,
you
or
can-
just
you
a
can.
different night? So Ananda, I guess just out of curiosity, the idea of this would be your expansion, not only to give you, one centralized place, but like you said, to help youth. So this would work, completely separate out of, separated from like the rural recovery center and all that. I'm
Yes.
guessing, right?
Yes. Yeah, and in fact, rural recovery, they cannot serve youth under 18. So
Okay.
we serve that population as well as we do collaborate with them around coaching for 18 to 25-year-olds, but they are unable to serve under 18.
So just to clarify, so right now we have $500,000 recommended by the town manager. You're looking to increase that to $1 million, so. Okay, $1,500,000. So the million would go to the.
That would be their
I mean,
intention.
Yeah, honestly, at this point, the request, like, I think at this point in the process, I'm making a request so that I can make a request. I assume that my request will have to follow the existing process of requesting funds from the community impact funding. Through that Mark facilitates.
Okay, so since you're just coming across this now, like design plans and all that stuff are still very much up in the air, or is there a set of prints and how far down the budgeting, plan have you gone?
In order for so the answer is twofold. Things are very much up in the air. However, in order for our board to make a decision to pursue this in our strategic plan, part of our assessment in that process involved really like rough prints to ascertain that we could fit what we needed in that space. And so based on that, I've had my dad look at that. For those of you who aren't Eric, my dad is a contractor, Phil Timpain, to rough out some figures, but nothing is set in stone, just enough for us to know the general ballpark we're going in and begin the process of developing plans.
So because this is so new, there's a possibility that you could get some grants for this. You might not need this full amount.
Oh, no, the project will cost over this. I expect the project will in total cost 1.5 to 1.6 million. And again, that's a very rough number, but construction is very expensive.
Well, the process that would happen here is the town manager appoints a community impact funding committee. And what Ananda's trying to do is to have this money available if the committee so says that it's an appropriate use of the money for the town of Great Barrington. So if the committee said no to that, and speaking a little out of turn, because we haven't really had a chance, I haven't even talked to Mark about this, that money could drop back into free cash if it's not spent. If they say, no, that's not appropriate, and we wouldn't lose anything.
Right. Could we, let me just, to thoroughly understand the situation, would it fall under this one line item, special article at town meeting, with the million basically just being earmarked, I believe would be the right word, for this project? And if the committee said no, then it would go back, or would they be able to say, dole it out to whatever else they thought would be more fitting?
The town manager gives them a budget.
Yeah, they just make a recommendation to me every year, so I would have some control over how that money ultimately is spent.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ananda.
May I ask a question?
Of
Thank
course.
you so much. I really appreciate.
Okay.
I think there's another question coming.
Yeah, there's a question coming in, so hold on.
I'm Jenny Clark, Oak Street. In the same way that we asked about enrollment for the school district, Can you tell us approximately how many clients you have now for this service?
Yeah, but we're not deciding on this tonight, so we're not gonna go into the weeds on this. We're gonna talk about it again either tomorrow night or next Tuesday and make a decision, and I'm sure you'll be here. If you're not, I'll ask the question for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great.
So Nanda will be here to answer questions.
And Nanda will be, and Nanda wants $1 million, and Nanda will be. Berkshire Hills vocational tuition and transportation. Is there any questions on that? That's one that we.
I don't think we can do much.
That's why I thought I owed it. to
It's
ask, but
okay.
We can sit here and complain about it, but that's not gonna help us at all.
I'm just glad to say that purchasing the van has reduced some of our expenses.
I think this was up at 300,000 at one point.
I think you're right. It was like 340 or something.
Yeah, it was some ridiculous number.
Well, the first year, we had vocational students, we put the transportation out to bid and the bids came back at the 6-figure number, so if buying a van, and using the transit program has been, a real cost saver. For sure.
Right. Okay, next is the emergency medical services. Jim, do you want to? Kevin?
Yes.
Good evening. We promised you we'd be back, and unfortunately, here we are.
Yes.
I know Mark handed out at the beginning of the meeting, this sheet to everybody that says comparison, 2023 comparison. I need to make a correction on it. One of the figures I have on here is wrong. About halfway down on the 2022 column where it says total payments, 1,339,000. It should actually be 1,467,653, 658. So this is where I would like to start tonight's discussion. I wasn't going to, but since you asked the other departments to start with the bullet points and everything, the most important figures, this is what I want to do. So if you'll just go down this chart with me, there's some important comparisons here and some important figures that you need to know why we had to come up with the figure that we did. Starting with charges, you'll see that in 2022, we charged total charges of 4,794,513. 2023, 4,147,308, big decrease. The gross net charges, which is what we actually collected, was for 22, 1,704,380. 23, 1,495,067. Again, a big decrease. Contractual adjustments. This is automatic write-offs from insurance companies and everything that come from what we charge. Excuse me, from what we charge. 22 was 3,090,132. 23 was 2,652,240. That's a decrease in there. I'll amend that number in a few minutes. So total payments for 2022 was 1,467,658. 23, 1,371,980, a decrease again. For number of runs, this is a big one. In 2022, we did 2,652. In 23, we did 2,263. That's a decrease of almost 400 calls. Average charge per call in 22 was $1,808. 23, 1,833. Those are basically the same. The average revenue per call, and this is an important one, 22 was $557, and 23, 606. Slight increase, but what these numbers show you is that basically on every call, our ambulance leaves the garage, we lose money. We don't get anywhere, we get about a third, 31 to 32% on average of everything we charge. That's unsustainable. Last fall, there were articles in the newspapers, both the Edge and the Eagle, talking about the closure of Adams Ambulance Service as the closest example to us as to where that service is closed. And the reason for them that happened is the same thing that could happen to us is that, the income just does not become sustainable anymore. The organization cannot survive on the income from billing, as you can see. And so the other departments here have already mentioned tonight, you know, the police, the fire department. These are all decreases that I just read off to you, and I'll explain it a little bit more in a minute. But all of our other expenses have gone up, just like them, you know, service for our vehicles. Bulldog also takes care of our ambulances. Kevin can tell you that, you know, the charges that we're paying them are going up and up. Gas, oil, the same thing. Our insurance has gone up. Another big expense, our biggest expense is salaries. And staffing right now is, I would call it a critical situation for us. Where there just are not any EMTs or paramedics out there. They left the field 3 or 4 years ago during the pandemic. They're not coming back into the field of EMS in any numbers that would support what's needed in the field. We are down, as we sit here tonight, we're down 3 paramedics, 2 for injury and 1 that is in the service right now. We're providing coverage, paramedic coverage day by day by using Kevin Wall, who's our COO. He's also a paramedic, so he's doing double duty 1 or 2 days a week just to cover these, just to keep us covered for a paramedic shift. Last year, when we were here, we said that we wanted to put a 3rd truck on the road to help increase our income with interfacility transfers. Those are, they're not big money makers, but they're better than our routine calls, than the 911 calls. All the hospitals in the area are always looking for an ambulance service to do interfacility transfers. We can't, right now, we also told you last year that our goal, and we were doing it last year, but we are not meeting the goal right now, is that to have 2 paramedic service trucks on the road 24/7. That means 1 paramedic and 1 EMT on each rig. There are several days a week now where we only are able to man 1 truck on the road. That means that the interfacility transfers that the hospital wants us to do, we frequently have to turn them down. Unless it's a true medical life-saving transfer, we will not take that 911 truck out of the area, because we're contracted with you and the 5 other towns to provide 911 service, and we take that seriously. So when we do that, the hospital gets annoyed with us, but you know, we're not the only ambulance service in that situation. You can, you know, all of the others in the county are pretty much the same. No one is ever manned on a daily basis to what they would like to be manned. Our biggest expense for the year is salaries. It is every year, and the salaries will go up again this year. Right now, a little over 17% of our salary budget is going into overtime, because we have to pay people overtime to cover the empty shifts, to fill in the shifts that we don't have any staff for. That's a big hit. That takes a lot of stuff from us. So what's our number 1 problem? The number 1 problem is staffing. The number 2 problem is that from this sheet that we just read all these numbers off of, if you just look at the runs. If you take a decrease of 389 calls, say 400 at $606 a call, you know, that's a good chunk. That's a little over 200,000, I believe, if I did my calculations right. That's money that we're not taking in, because those calls, we cannot do. What are those calls? Those are a lot of interfacility calls that we have to decline. Plus even our actual 911 number of calls has also decreased. And we really haven't come up with a reason why, have we, Kevin?
Well, that's always a variable number.
Yeah. 400 is a big number though. Yeah. And you can see what we get from income from insurance. That on top of the insurance decreases, on top of the decrease in number of runs, which is money that we cannot bring in, the money that we would like to bring in by interfacility transfers, because we don't have the staff that we can, just keeps making that negative number bigger and bigger and bigger. And again, as I said several times last year, I'll say it several times again this year, It's not just us, it's EMS as an organization, as a, an entity out there, a type of field that's trying to provide services. We also, EMS, unlike fire and police, we're not considered an essential service in the state of Massachusetts. We disagree with that. I think it's kind of a, a slap in the face to EMS personnel. When someone dials 911, they want one of three services, not one of two services. And we feel that they are very important, but we feel we're just as important. I know the number that we have asked you for went up substantially. We were just as shocked as you were, I'm sure, when you first read it. We were not happy with it. We're not happy, I dreaded coming here to present in front of you folks because of that number, because I know you're not happy with it, but I don't know we don't know what the alternative is right now. I think we're at the point where down the road in the next year or so, we're gonna have to try to come up with another model of providing ambulance coverage, ambulance service to the 6 towns in this area. What that means, we're just starting to throw this out in the discussion in our own board meetings. I can't give you any specifics on anything because I don't know. But we feel at this point, if you keep coming back to you folks year after year after year, asking for 25–30% increase is just not sustainable. It's not for us, it's not for you. So that's kind of where we are.
I'm sure there's questions, start with Lee.
And let me just say, I'm sure your questions are gonna be a lot of detailed budget related. Our budget person, our treasurer could not be here tonight, so I apologize. Kevin will try and answer some budget questions for you, but if he can't, I will have to defer, take some questions, and get them to us, and we will get answers to you.
So let me ask you this question before we just pepper you with questions you can't answer. Can he be here tomorrow night?
Huh?
Can he be here tomorrow night?
I don't know the answer to that.
I got a question.
I will, okay, go ahead.
Why do you need to know?
I'm sorry, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens.
If you question the electric company or the, any other provider to the town, what they're.
If you wanna come up with the microphone, you can, but let's wait till we've asked our questions first. I'll let you go last year. I'm not going through that.
I just have, my
Yes.
question is
Take it back. If he can, I will contact him first thing in the morning. I know he's not available.
Because I can put this off till tomorrow so that,
yeah.
we don't have to ask them twice and don't have to
I
put you
will
through a thing
contact
I don't
him
know.
first thing in the morning and I will find out. Who should I let know? Mark? All right,
Okay.
I'll see if he's
Yeah.
available.
I'll wait till.
So yeah, I will just wait. I just wanted to
Yeah.
understand the definitions of what you have on that.
Well, maybe you can, go ahead and try.
If
Try
that's,
us.
if that's okay. So, just so that I understand, how the numbers are, playing here. So you have, when you say your, average charge per call, does it mean this is really, you are including all the expenses, so it includes all of your operating expenses, capital expenses, everything in it, or no? Oh, it doesn't, okay, so I think that we should really have the
So the average charge per call is essentially the reimbursement.
from the insurance,
From
okay,
the-
okay, I hear you.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
correct, okay.
We have 2 chances at this. We have tomorrow and a
Yeah.
week from yesterday. So. I
No,
prefer
Wednesday or
tomorrow.
Wednesday or next Monday?
Week from tonight.
From today.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
And just to prep you, mine was looking at the division between the other towns, how are we appropriating, or what's your ask for the other towns?
The other towns,
36% increase to.
To
all six
everyone,
towns.
so everyone's the same,
yeah,
Right.
and it's not based on how many calls
No.
another town has, it's
36%
across the board,
last year's.
across the board,
the
there.
total increase was 125,000. That was
This is on the board.
split up between the 6 towns.
So you're not saying that Great Barrington has more calls, therefore our percentage
No,
increase is
no,
more? Okay.
That was just me.
What we had trouble making people understand last year, and I'll reiterate again tonight, is what we call cost of readiness.
Yeah.
And this is where taking the number of calls gets thrown out the window.
Sure,
We pay people to sit in that garage 24/7, 365 days a year, whether they do 0 calls a day or 10 calls a day, we still have to pay them. So we feel very strongly that part of the fee that we're charging these towns, some of them think it's too much. has to be spread out a little, in a little more fair way than just the number of calls that we are responding to in your town.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, I think our original, when you came to us for some of the original amounts, you did look at the amount of calls. So even though
Yeah.
the percentage increase this year is same across towns. Earlier on, we did look at percentage calls, so, but I understand that rationale. I guess my question, and may not know the answer, so I'll just throw it out, is, I know in previous years, we've asked you to do some fundraising, and I did get your fundraising brochure, and it did motivate me in knowing your
Yes.
situation. I'm just wondering if you have any numbers on how
Good
much.
question. Yeah, we did, with our fundraising drive that we had in November, December of this past year, we did actually very well. The year before, we had taken in about $60,000. This year, we're over 100,000. What's the number, John?
About 120.
About 120,000. So we did much better. I think I like the way that we did it this year. I also think that it went out right at the same time that there were all the articles in the newspaper about the Adams ambulance closing. So I'm going to attribute some of the bump to that also, because, we were interviewed for some of the articles, and, we said that, honestly, yes, it could be us. It's not now, and it won't be in a couple of months, but it could be us someday that happens too. And so we also have just hired in the last month or so, a grant writer. He's going to be applying to FEMA for us for $150,000 for new cardiac monitors. See, that you will not see in the budget, the operating budget, because that comes out of the capital budget. That's $150,000 and 3 new monitors that there's no way we would have been able to do without grants. He will also be doing two other smaller grants for us. We don't know exactly what for yet down the road. Am I missing anything, John? Okay.
And I don't expect you to exactly have an answer to this, but you mentioned needing a different model. And I'm just trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Because, last year you said you'd probably be back, but this is a huge increase. So, I mean, is there a sense that we're moving into potentially a different model, that's the state stepping in more, or that it's distributed differently, or?
No, I think the first model that we would look at, and I'm not saying that this is what would happen. I think that it would become a municipal type of ambulance service, between the 6 towns, maybe some of the other smaller ones added in also. The literature is showing that that's what a lot of these smaller towns are doing now, because they just can't survive the way, that we are right now, and, what we've been able to do, but it gets worse and worse for us. But that's something that we have to look into. What do you want to add to that, Kevin?
We've been in discussion with a representative of the Collins Center through UMass, which was the town of Sandusfield approached them to do a sustainability study on their EMS services. And their study of that, we've been in discussion with them, so they have some suggestions, but they're still working on that study. We haven't approached anything about us just yet, but that's where the conversation seems to be going.
We have spoken twice with Senator Paul Mark and Representative Kelly. They have both been to our garage individually, and then we also met with him, and I saw you there, Lee, in Sheffield a couple of months ago. The subject of the EMS was brought up. And they both agree that the model we're working with stinks. No, it doesn't work. But they don't have an answer to it. Well, they do. Their answer to it right now, unfortunately, is municipalities and towns that pick up to pick up the budget.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, Lee?
Yes.
Yeah.
The problem is, and many years ago, we met in this room with Smitty, and he talked about having, one ambulance, one fire, but it never went anywhere. Not anyone's fault. I mean, the problem you're running into, and no one here doesn't support what you do. The problem you're running into is you have to have more runs, especially between facilities, to be anywhere close to breaking even. You can't have more runs if you don't have enough paramedics.
It's just a vicious circle.
So, and I watch it from work, calls all over the place trying to find the ambulance.
Yeah.
It's not because of a lack of need, it's just a lack of personnel.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem. I mean, and, we have You've been honest tonight, Jim, which I'm not surprised, and Kevin, that this is not sustainable. That this model's not working, but somehow it has nothing to do with your pay, it has nothing to do with anything else, it has to do with the number of paramedics and the small area we live in, and
Medicare.
and Medicare, exactly, which I'm totally familiar with insurance reimbursements, and insurance always pays you either equal or less than it cost you, so then you have to take a loss on a lot of things and make it up somewhere else. So what we have to be careful of is, if you came here tonight and said, well, this is the way it is, you just every year we're gonna go up 35%, we don't say, well, that's not sustainable. So no one is saying that, you know, throwing daggers at you, we're just saying, okay, we as a group.
Process.
Yeah, it's a process, and we all have to work together to do this. Adam Carlotta's on your board now, representing the town, and we appreciate that. That was one of the changes you made. But we have to figure this out. We all have to.
We are. And it's not just a South Berkshire issue, or Berkshire County, or state of Massachusetts. This is a nationwide problem, and nobody has come up. You know, there are little fixes here and there, you know, that to carry people over, but there's until this insurance thing gets, as far as I'm concerned, and we can get more people, young people, to get interested in joining the field of EMS, it's just not gonna be sustainable. We lose EMTs and paramedics out to nursing. They get into the field, and then after a year or two, they see a nurse making twice what they are, and they can become an RN in a year and a half, 2 years. They're gonna go back to school.
And you have some really good paramedics. Just come up to the microphone, it's just so people can hear you.
Just quickly, because we're not an essential service, there's no state funding.
Yeah, that's just crazy. And it has nothing to do with
Yeah.
your personnel. Your personnel's top notch.
They are.
We're
lucky
but
to
there's
have-
just not enough of them.
Anything that we do, you know, that we wanna sit down and discuss with, we will love the towns. We're not gonna do it behind anybody's back, because we need your help, you know, because it's not just. You're gonna be the ones that make the final decision probably on, you know, what the new model's gonna look like, because you're gonna be involved more. So everything will be done with your cooperation and with your input. It won't happen tomorrow, next month, but it will happen within, you know, in 6 months, we'll start doing this.
Smitty kept saying, for as long as I can remember, regionalization. At one time, we covered 10 towns, now we're 6 plus, you know, when somebody needs help. How much more regional can you get? If all the towns got together and added 2 cents to the tax rate, we'd be covered. But again, like I said, we're not considered an essential service, and
Yeah, that part's ridiculous. Because if you went away, everyone would consider you an essential service. Everybody'd raise their hands and panic. Yeah, you can't go away. I don't know what the definition of essential everyone else is using, but that's kind of essential to me. Anyone else? We'll get the people who are experts in the numbers here either tomorrow or next Tuesday,
Okay,
and we'll.
as soon as I find out, I'll email you. Mark.
Well, that's right now.
Okay,
Yeah, there's no sense of peppering you with questions that you.
but I don't wanna give wrong answers. You don't need that, I don't wanna do it. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, and it's already 8 o'clock and we're not, you know, we're not gonna do that.
Okay.
Okay,
right,
thank
thank
you,
you.
both of you. Legal associated, fees associated, which Lee's already made a suggestion, we can talk about that. That's 15,000, it's not huge, but it's a good suggestion. Courthouse upgrades. I think we've talked about that once, we'll talk about it again when we move, but if you have any other questions?
This is in addition to what we talked about the other.
No.
No, this is not, this is the same thing.
Oh, so this is
Okay.
in the capital budget, but it's.
It's not in the capital, but it is in this project.
No.
Joe, can you speak to the courthouse?
I'm sorry?
Can you speak to the $200,000 courthouse?
We talked about it the other night, this is the same 200.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's not 400, there's just 200.
That's correct.
Okay, that's.
There's money in the operation budget too.
But that's
for
241,
some items.
this
We have
is-
capital items, and we wanted to break out, so it didn't skew the capital
the operation.
Right, which makes sense.
And will we be getting reimbursed by, the state? or-
We don't have the new rate of the grants or of the fees, but our anticipation is that we will be in the green over the time. They did a study of the courthouse, the court system did, and they came up with a bunch of things. One of the biggest items in this year's is paint the outside of the courthouse. There's no tax, so there's some $4,000 and stuff like that.
So this $200,000, we might see it come back.
You'll probably see this for 2 or 3 years in a row.
Okay.
To get us caught up. But then, it's for the 10-year lease.
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead.
Is the improvements are, we can't renew the lease. Sounds like we can't renew the lease without the improvements. Is that
That's
right?
not the case.
Okay. So the improvements then are, sounds like it's an investment to charge a higher lease rate for the better building.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there some math on that you could share with us, or estimated math, like payback period?
I think we're about $10 a square foot right now over there.
For the lease,
What's that?
for the lease, and not
For
for.
the lease, I think we get $10 a square foot a month, 10 or 11.
I don't know.
In the ballpark, I think that.
Yeah,
Which is under market.
Sure, I'm not asking you, I'm not asking you to remember it all, because you have a lot on your plate, but has there been some type of review of this particular allocation of money, just to say, well, if we don't put the money in to the improvements, we could charge one number for the lease on the building, but if we put this improvements in the building, we could charge some higher number for the building over a 10-year period.
I think in a similar concept, maybe a different approach.
Okay.
I think they gave us what they felt, they wanted to see improve over the next lease period.
Yeah.
And we put numbers to it. We're yet to see their new lease rate come in. So if they come in with a lease rate that's $11.50 a square foot,
Yeah.
we can take and throw it away.
Right.
You know, but I think we're planning on a sizable adjustment.
so so is there negotiation? Like if we didn't want to put $200,000 in it, are they gonna walk away? I mean, it seems like such a big chunk.
That could be a problem.
The way this has always been done, and I go back farther than these two, because the school district owned the building, the way it's always been done is the state comes, and the building's in much better shape than it was 25 years ago. But the state will come and say, okay, for the next lease period, first of all, both sides have to establish that they do want another lease, they're not gonna leave, and we want them there. Then they say for the next lease period, over the next 10 years, this is what we want done to the building. It's an old building, there's some problems in it that need to be fixed, and some aesthetic problems. And then the state usually comes back with a pretty, what I would call a fair rate, of return that more than pays for it. And by more, I mean, we actually do make money on it. So it's always been done that way. The school district just decided, even though we were making money on it, that it was more of a town appropriate building. Plus, our facilities person had enough to do without having to deal with this. Joe can tell you about that. So that's why it was turned back over to the town, not for lack of money. It definitely wasn't lack of money.
Like to Phil's point, I would love to see that comparison. Like if we invest $200,000, what are we gonna get back in a different lease? And I'd like to almost see that before, $200,000 is put in.
I'm not sure we'll see that before town meeting.
Yeah.
Mark, I kind of expected it by now, maybe we could push a little bit forward. But
The one thing to realize, and I'm not defending it by far, the state works at their own pace. We all know that. So we can want that and we should want that, but whether we get it or not, it's a whole nother story. We'll get it when we get it.
But I also think though, if the state comes back with a lease that doesn't justify the expenses covered they want, I don't think we're gonna sign a lease either.
Yeah.
Why would we put the town in that position?
So kind of chicken and egg, we can elect, hypothetically, we could approve this at town meeting, but then find out that the state is not paying the higher rate and we can just whip it up.
Exactly.
And the money comes back to the town.
So, we had a little bit of egg on our face for the last lease. There were some things that were requested to be done that, we hustled around, and we got them done last year. Carpeting, stair, things like that. So
the town had appropriated around $200,000, I think, at previous town meetings that I spent to get the work done that was required by Glassing. So they're very happy with us at this point in the progress we made. And I think we've even, the gentleman we're dealing with has told us that, the rate we're getting is less than current market value. So I think there's a sizable, my walk away from that is.
So the guy you're negotiating with said that we're getting less than market value?
Well, it was signed 10 years ago, so.
Okay.
It's 10 years old.
Yeah.
But you don't have any adjustment in the lease agreement?
No, we will,
Annual adjustment?
we will have a significant
No,
adjustment.
no, I know, but like, when you sign a lease for 10 years, you don't have any adjustment built into it?
I don't think there was an adjustment built into the lease is expired at this point. So.
Okay, I think that's a good thing to do. If you are gonna go with a long-term lease,
Yeah.
you need to have some increases built in the agreement, yeah.
So we've been undercharging. basically.
Well, I'm sorry?
Or in the rate up front.
Yeah, I mean, no, you cannot get everything upfront, but you need to just build it in, yeah.
I think this basically hits on the fact that, and Joe brought it up the first night, like, we need to start maintaining our buildings. And we haven't in a long time. And these are the prices to catch up. And I think $200,000 invested into the courthouse is a sound thing. We don't want another empty building and then it quickly deteriorating after. And so even if we invest 200, start dealing with the outside, which it sounds like it's being proposed, it keeps the building active, less leaks, all the stuff that rapidly starts knocking a building out. And it's just something that apparently with like a firehouse, last 13 years, 15 years, has never been budgeted for. And we just have to get used to start budgeting, taking care of our buildings. That's the way I would look at this.
I have 3 questions. So we allocated $200,000 last year. This is for another 200,000.
No,
It didn't happen.
So we
the
never
two hundred
spent.
thousand was for years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
And it just
misunderstood.
never got done.
But we are expecting another 200,000 next year and the year after. The new lease will still pay for that $600,000?
Over the life of the lease, yes.
Over the life of the lease, okay.
Correct.
And then I guess I don't really understand, we have courthouse in the capital request for 241,000. And then there's courthouse for 200,000 here. I'm confused.
Immediate needs from the building study.
Yeah, the immediate needs of the building stuff.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said. The
So
immediate
we
needs
have
for-
5 buildings we studied.
I know that.
So what they're saying, let me try this because it's getting late. The 241 is that 50% of the immediate needs has nothing to do with what the state's asking for, but it's that study that said, you gotta do these things now to these buildings, and that was one of the buildings they
And
studied.
that's not what the state's not asking for these?
The 240 in the capital budget
Yeah.
is for mechanical, structural things to keep the building up and running. It's not to fit it out for the tenant's needs.
Then it is two different numbers.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that you're talking really 441,000.
Yeah.
One is a capital request, the other would be.
I know, but I mean, altogether, the.
But they're
the
two,
total
they're
cost
both
is-
capital.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, well, this appropriation, the request for this is because your capital request that you're gonna borrow for 20 years for, you don't wanna pay a building with that money. That you're gonna be paying it again in 7 years.
Well, but it's capital that we're not borrowing for.
Right, it gets a little confusing. It's not capital that we're borrowing for, you're correct. It's
Right.
capital improvements,
Right,
but how we're funding it is,
right, but not
Yeah.
everything on the capital budget is borrowed.
Borrowed,
Right,
some of
that's
it is
confusing.
funded,
Yeah, so I don't
You're right.
understand why we don't just put this in the capital budget.
as opposed to special article, I kind
Yeah.
of agree,
Well,
yeah.
The idea is that,
Yeah.
there's a difference between keeping the building up and running and functional and a difference between bidding it out to what a tenant wants and having that offset by a lease.
Well, then that's my third question,
The
sorry.
lease is, signed, there's.
The whole courthouse, and somehow I guess I missed it in past years, so. As someone who hasn't, used the courthouse all that much. What is the great benefit of having a courthouse in Great Barrington?
First of all, we make money.
So,
First of all, we do make money. Second
do
of
we
all,
make money or we break even?
no, we make money.
All right.
And second of all, it brings people into Barrington who spend money here. It's another way of bringing people in.
There's
Maybe.
there's no better way of preserving a building than keeping it.
You need
occupied.
someone.
I see that.
It's
Okay.
number two, it's an access to justice issue.
But that's,
Access to,
yeah.
to courts and court systems and lawyers and there's that whole argument.
Yeah.
Do we have a number on, if we're making money on that? I mean, do we have a significant number? I mean, you can sell it to the town people if it's, if it's simple and it says this is what it is.
Yeah, we don't have a lease right now, so we can't tell you that because.
But you have history.
Right, and I hope we have that, hope to have that lease negotiated and signed by town meeting. It's also awfully convenient for our police department to have that courthouse in town. That's a
But are they,
huge benefit.
are they paying now or they are not paying right now?
No, they're paying.
They're paying. So you know what the income is.
Correct,
Yeah,
I don't off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
We can come back with it.
Yeah.
Phil, go
Okay, I'm done.
Can I offer to?
No, I didn't ask my question yet.
Sorry.
Can I offer to participate or assist in just trying to sort of quantify the financial benefit of what you're proposing? Because I guess I take it at face value that it's to our benefit, the arrangement. But I guess the answer is sort of how much,
Agreed.
And what it condemns, if is it a small amount that could disappear if we have unforeseen expenses or surprises somewhere? Or is it just on its face, a terrific investment for the town to make and kind of a no-brainer? So it's kind of all about how much. So I appreciate there's a lot of moving pieces and, you probably don't have a financial analyst on staff at the DPW. If I could help in any way, I'd be happy to help.
No, but I think if I could sit here and tell you what our revenues would be for the year,
Right.
and what our expenses would be for the year,
Yeah.
because they pay all their own utilities, this is just the upkeep, so.
Yeah.
They do all their own cleaning, we're back with the school.
Yeah.
So if we knew what the lease was, I could tell you, this is how much revenue we could see at $400,000. It's not gonna cover this year, but it's coming next year,
Okay, but then if it's over a 10-year period, then we have to sort of factor in, the present dollars versus 10-year dollars and they're not.
The improvements that they asked for, are improvements they want to see in years 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
In the discussions. So in years beyond that, there's no significant improvements that they requested, so our payback will come later.
Okay.
And I know what you're asking for, so we'll try to get.
No, I'm offering to help it too. And to Madonna's point, I think in a perfect world, we have a one pager that sort of lays out why this is a good thing and by how much.
Yeah.
And that makes some folks feel better about it.
Steve was enthusiastic.
Always happening. But I understand Phil's point. Lee, go ahead.
Yeah, so I thank you, Bill, because that was something I would love to see is that comparison. So the other question I have is we're looking at the other $241,000, is that's 50% of immediate needs. If you add this $200,000, does this go up to like 60% of
There
immediate?
is a little bit of a crossover between what the court system requested and what our building requested, but they're not substantial.
Okay, so is this mostly aesthetics or, obviously it would be nice to be in a nice courthouse with nice tiles and freshly painted walls, but it just, for me, I'm having a hard time with $200,000 after they've said that we've been undercharging them for many years, so I don't know.
We didn't lose
I'm
money on it over the years, so we need to get those figures, because it may be below market value, but we haven't lost money on it.
So, the exterior painting of that building is estimated around $90,000. So everyone says, wow, but it's prevailing wage, it's all state rates. There's some, exterior patching, the steps that are falling apart, another $1,200, crack ceiling, the parking lot, which is $3,500. So I do have an itemized list, Bill, that if you're helping with that, this will come in a great help with you. And we've given us the course, so this is for cost, so make sure when you come back to us, we'll at least cover it too.
Okay, great.
Okay, let's move ahead, because I get rough after 8. I know the, yes, dinner would have been nice. The library people here, we're really gonna talk about that as we move ahead, but let's, if you wanna spend 5 minutes. Because that's not recommended by the town manager, the 150,000. So if you want to just spend 5 minutes on that, I respect you're here all night, so.
Well, respect you tonight, because you're all starting to look a little sleepy. Good evening, I'm Pat Hollenbeck, I'm chair of the library trustees. We'd like to respectfully ask, request a restoration of our request, which was for $150,000 for the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners Library Construction Program. It's a grant cycle that last occurred 8 years ago. I'll just take a couple minutes here to give you some context around the story. Built in 1908, its last major capital improvement was in 1929, almost 100 years ago. The architectural gem was placed on the National Historic Register in 2014. In 2009, plans for renovation were estimated to be at $38 million, 1.3. At that point, they had a cost estimator brought in. Price per square foot was going to be $270. 2011, town manager would not sign the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners grant. He decided to push it back until 2016 for renovation. Unfortunately, he left his position in 2013. And I do have, that's from library minutes from July 14, 2008. 2014, trustees embarked on a comprehensive plan to renovate Ramsdale. CPC declined to fund it. At that point, according to Housatonic Architectural, which was Diego at the time, who was doing some estimation, price went up to $350 a square. 2016, a new town manager said she would put money in capital projects for gradual renovation, which she did. MBLC does not fund phased projects, so no application was made by the town. And that was the 8-year, that's when the last grant proposal had. May 2023, MBLC announced a round of library construction funds. Town filed a letter of intent. There's a prerequisite, this is like similar to what we've heard earlier tonight. To apply for the grant, there's a town needs to approve $150,000 for a planning and design phase if application is accepted. If it's accepted, MBLC would match that up to another $100,000 with the grant award. September 2023, library trustees requested $200,000 from CPA, $150,000 for the town's investment for the MBLC grant, and $50,000 for required studies for MBLC application. CPC recommended $50,000, which was approved at town meeting in October 2023. December 2023, the library trustees requested, again, the appropriation of $150,000 for fiscal year 25 from CPC. They did, and the select board voted to endorse that request, as did Representative Smitty Pignatelli. The CPC came back with, they recommended that the library trustees request an appropriation of $150,000 from town capital budget in lieu of CPA funds. February 2024, this month, an independent group of citizens has commenced the process of establishing a 501c3 nonprofit for library capital improvements. Coming up, May 2, 2024, MBLC grant application is due on May 31st. A certified vote from town meeting appropriating $150,000 is a statutory requirement. We cannot apply without that initial investment. October 2024, the state at that point will decide who the applicants are successful, and with that, they will pay 60% in the first $5 million as eligible costs. Beyond $5 million, there's some projects that go way over that. $5 to $10 million, they'll pay an additional 45%. As you saw with the estimates Joe had for work for Ramsdale, the estimation was $1.885 million to just upgrade Ramsdale to code, which is not going to make it a 21st century library. At this point, libraries are turned into Their community gatherings, spaces. Ramsdale always was. 50% of Ramsdale, the upstairs, the Boy Scouts used to be up there at one point. There was preschool up there. It's always been a half of a library and half of a community center. That's all it ever was supposed to be. That's what it should be now. But so anyway, Joe's estimate of work, and some of this is included in this year's budget, 1.885 is not gonna bring that up to the standards that citizens around here need now. I don't think it includes an elevator to the second floor. There's no way to get up there otherwise, for ADA. Now you need a lot more bathrooms in the building and everything else. So I'll turn this over now to my esteemed colleague here, the doctor, the good doctor.
I have to say that I really strongly feel that we need to support the ambulance service. That's number one. You know, if you are in a critical position where you are resuscitating a newborn and you're pumping that air into that baby and you're waiting for that ambulance to come through, you know how critical that ambulance is to the people's lives. So this town has gone, you know, it's much more critical now, similar to resuscitating a baby, that we need to resuscitate Ramsdale. As you all know, the town has gone totally into affordable housing movement, but we also have to look into diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. That is part of what the 21st century is asking for, and the town needs to represent that. And the way to do it is to support Ramsdale, to make it a gathering space for all people, people with disabilities. They can use their bathrooms, they can go in and get the books they want, the DVD they want, the music they want, that they cannot go now. The children can go there and they can have a safe place for the kids to go, where they can get tutoring in a quiet space without having the intrusions of other media and television going at the same time. I have seen that in the library over and over again. So we have bypassed the CPA grant. And the primary premise of the CPA grant was that if we gave primary funding to the buildings in the municipality, we didn't do that. We didn't get the grant. So now we're coming back. We're asking the town to look within themselves every time they drive by Housatonic, every time they drive by that library. Go in and take a look and see what it looks like. The ceilings are falling. There is no place to go to the bathroom for someone in a wheelchair. So having the ramp up is a very small portion of what this town represents. This town represents better, much better than what I expect. And I think we can do it by putting the money where our mouths are. You want affordable housing, that is a great movement, but we also have to give them equity. And equity comes from putting money into restoring a historic building so we can be proud of it. So please think carefully. Don't be afraid to go into the building and take a look. Because if you have, I don't know how many of you have actually gone into the building. Have any of you gone into the building? Do you know where the bathroom is? Where is the bathroom?
Ruby, can we wrap this up?
Okay, so as you all know, the bathroom door opens right into your face as you're walking in. Okay, so I just want to let you guys know that you really need to put the money where your mouth is. Thank you.
I just have one request, but just as a general, maybe help me.
Right.
Ruby, and one of the, and I appreciate the passion. One question I would have is when you talk about.
This is not passion.
No,
This is the truth.
I know, I'm not,
Okay,
This is-
let her ask the question.
no, I know.
Let her ask
I
the
mean, there's a
question.
lot more to it. I just want to say it. I appreciate that. When you talk about the state paying 60% of the estimate costs, I'm always looking to the future. So, you know, if you get the 150,000 and the state steps up with up to $100,000 in matching funds, we're not guaranteed that 100,000, but they're saying up to. So there's a you know, a number that we're not sure, and then they might come up with 60% of estimate costs. So I'm always looking for, okay, what's gonna be on the town's shoulders after all this happens? And what's our plan to fund that moving forward? Is it gonna be on?
It's really
So
interesting that
if
you
you
asked
could
that.
maybe come up with a number and say, okay,
Exactly, and it's really interesting why you asked that question, because we had asked for already taxpayers funding for this, and we got bypassed. So the taxpayer could have funded this without additional funding in their pockets. And this was not done.
No, I think what she's talking about, and then we're gonna move
And
on.
so,
Ruby, I think what she's talking about
I
is,
understand what.
no, I don't think you do, is the $2 million or $3 million,
I
that's an
understand.
additional money, not the $150,000.
We had raised over $300,000 to support the Mason, when the Mason was renovated.
No, it was over 700,000.
700,000.
Okay, we're talking about the $2 or $3 million is what he's talking about.
So-
That's above and beyond what the state will give us.
Above and beyond the grant,
Yes.
we will be fundraising to make money, just like we did with Mason. We will be expecting, again, coming back to the town, to get CPA funding over the next couple of years to make up close to $1 million. But that is coming from taxpayers already paid money.
Right. Let's continue this
Does
because,
that answer your question?
Well, let me just do just a couple seconds on this. Whatever big chunk of money would be needed would be in fiscal year 26. This is a long process. So the next year would be planning and design phase. That's what the 150 would take care of. The state is saying up to another 100,000 because they're seeing estimates. They've got their ballparks of what these are costing now. So if the high end is 250,000, that's how they're coming up with that. There's a lot of great examples of the libraries, what private funding has done on these things. Greenfield of all places, it's not like one of our big majestic towns here. They went out and started a fund and they brought in $2 million for the library, which was $2 million that wasn't on the back of the taxpayers. But as I said, the longer we wait to do something with Randolph, you saw what the price per square foot went up in just a couple of years. You don't want to know what it is now. We don't even know. But it's not going to be cheaper. It's never going to be cheaper than it is right now, again, from what we've seen in the past. It's pretty scary, right? So if you want to wait another 8 years for the next grant round, when that building probably is falling apart and looking more like the back of Cerro School, you know, you're going to make this decision in this room here, folks. So I think it's a National Historic Register building. It's what you value. You know, if you value Housatonic and value that building, you're gonna have to step up and hope that the citizens of this town will support our libraries with their money.
and then I guess the answer to that question would be eventually, if we do talk about this again, is the fundraising that has already happened and the role of the Friends of the Library. So, you know, as the ambulance has said, their fundraising has increased twofold this year. So I would hope that there would be, you know, private fundraising that you could say, hey, we've raised $100,000 in private fundraising, but I don't want to get too much in the weeds.
One other thing, and there's an amazing fundraiser in Amherst, Ben News, who used the triplex used him. This gentleman has raised over $100 million for libraries, mostly in Massachusetts and some in New York State, $100 million. So he knows how to do this. Stockbridge's library didn't even get the MBLC grant. They didn't need it because it's a museum downstairs. This was a fundraiser they went to. And we've been in touch with this gentleman. So I think it's just, you can either believe in us and believe in our town that we're gonna do something, or you can think, well, we'll just push it down the road for another 8 years. I hope not.
Do you know who did the Monterey Library? Because, did they use, state money, town money?
They got the
fundraising?
same, it's a great example, thank you. Monterey applied for an MBLC money, didn't get it. And what happens is there's a wait list. They make a wait list, they look at what you've done with things, and then most libraries end up on the wait list, frankly. Because very few are prepared to just go ahead with these things, just like when they say, go ahead. So, so what happened was, Monterey did an unbelievable job. They did all the building programs, everything was just right. It was amazing. The state called them, cold called them and said, look at, you know, you're doing such an amazing job of what you're trying to do up there. we're gonna give you a grant, we got money. With math, there's some leftover money here, we get to do it. That's a town of 900. Sure, the town had to put in some money, but there's a lot of pretty well-off people in Monterey, and they stepped up to the plate. Simple as that.
Fundraise.
Yes, simple. So that's, we're basically, and we talk to him all the time, he's kind of guiding us on this.
Yeah.
And the town, the MBLC considers him to be the poster child for what you can do. In a tiny little town, it's just incredible what he's done. And let me just say one more thing about that. It's because the library is more than just books.
Right,
There's a
yeah.
Parkinson, that they meet up there. We had somebody from the Museum of Modern Art in New York, did a presentation a Zoom presentation from the library in New York, from the Museum of New York, up here in Monterey.
Yeah.
Basically, we're doing what he did.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, we'll
Thank you.
continue
Thank you
this.
for your
Thank
Very
you.
much, yeah.
Thank you. So,
Two dreams.
so tomorrow, let me throw out an idea and then you can, we can decide how we're gonna work tomorrow. There's 3 phases to the budget. There's capital, operations, and special articles. So my thought is we go over the capital tomorrow, we go over the special articles. For the operations, which we did this last year, we asked the town manager, and we'll decide tomorrow to come back with cuts to a certain number, certain percentage.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about what that can be tomorrow. But I think the special articles and capital, we'll talk about individual items, but I don't think doing the operating budget works as well that way. I think it's better to have the town
Yeah,
manager come
yeah.
back.
Yeah. I think
So
that's a
just
good
prepare,
way.
so tomorrow, just so I can be prepared, we're gonna talk about capital, special articles, and thinking about the operating budget as a whole.
Right,
Correct.
should be, yeah.
Correct. Which I think those 3 parts make up the entire.
Yeah, no,
budget. Yeah. Okay, anyone have any other comments? And I will take citizens speak.
Not us.
I see no hands up. Media time. By unanimous consent, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.